So there will not be the game this Saturday. Kyle Rowland from the Toledo Blade joins us now. And Kyle, there's going to be a lot of speculation the next 24, 48 hours about Ohio State's fate this coming Saturday. But the one thing we know for certain, they will not play. The Ohio State-Michigan game will not be played December the 12th. Now, maybe they'll play Maryland. Maybe they'll play Indiana. Maybe they won't play anybody this weekend. That's going to be what we're going to be determined over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, at this point, I would bet on them playing Maryland. But I guess who knows, what could happen. I mean, the Big Ten, it's hard to really guess what decision they're going to come up with. The bottom line is it's unbelievable that the Ohio State-Michigan game isn't happening. I understand why it's not happening, and I agree. It probably should not be played, but it's just amazing. I mean, 1917 was the last time this game wasn't played. It was played all throughout World War II. It's been played through, so many things. The one alteration was 1963 after JFK was assassinated. They delayed it for 1 week. And obviously, I guess it's in line for what 2020 has been, that Ohio State, Michigan is a casualty. Whether Ohio State plays or sits home, it's no disrespect to their potential opponent, but it's going to be a major letdown for what they would have otherwise had if they had played Michigan. This game is, 365 days of year. It's what the whole program is built around. It's what the state of Ohio kind of revolves around. I mean, everyone was going to sit in front of their TVs on Saturday afternoon. So it's just a tremendous loss, I think, for everyone.
And the fact of the matter is, Michigan actually kind of did Ohio State a solid by canceling this game on a Tuesday. They could have waited a Thursday or Friday to do that. It does give Ohio State, does give the Big Ten a chance to have some flexibility and potentially find a new opponent for the Buckeyes this Saturday.
Yeah, there was some panic, on social media today of, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? They're in trouble. There's not enough time. Tuesday is really early in terms of kind of preparing. You saw what Coastal and BYU did last week. Would you want to know a full week ahead? For sure. But there's plenty of time. I mean, the Big Ten's going to come up with something tomorrow. There'll be time to prepare. Don't forget, 2 weeks ago, Ryan Day said all Ohio State would need was a Thursday practice and then a Friday walkthrough to prepare for Michigan State. Yes, that was knowing who your opponent was the whole week. So your scouting, will be a little, iffy. But if they play Maryland, they did prepare for Maryland already this season and just couldn't play the game. So it's not like they're completely going on the fly. I think it's better. The earlier, the better. So the fact that they found out Tuesday afternoon, I think is a positive for Ohio State.
And we've seen this the last 12 hours. We've seen in college basketball teams rescheduling games on the fly. Football's never quite been that way. They like to have that schedule set in stone years in advance, but maybe we're going to start to see football be a little bit more flexible and be more willing to play a game where you don't know who your opponent is for a few days before that game begins.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's a possibility. I think the non-conference schedules will change significantly. I don't think you're going to see everyone scheduling out 15 years in advance. It's just not necessary. They've shown this year the proof. I don't know if schedules are necessarily going to have open dates where you can then just, fit someone in and kind of set up like a marquee game. I think that would be cool if they did that. But once stadiums are full again and fans are traveling, it's something that people kind of plan their years around. So I don't know how much they'll be able to do that. But I do think in the future that, flexibility should be a bigger part of college football than it's ever been. Because it's basically never been a part of the sport.
One way the Big Ten has been extremely inflexible this year is no non-conference games. You got Texas A&M, who now has an open date this weekend. Maybe we see Ohio State-Texas A&M matchup. I tend to doubt it, but that's certainly been one of the potential opponents that's been floated out there in the always powerful Twitter sphere.
Yeah, I don't think it will happen. I think it would be awesome. I think everyone associated with the sport would love it. It works perfectly. Both teams need someone to play. It could essentially be a quarterfinal game right into the playoff. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. I think it'd also be cool if, Ohio State somehow played BYU. You get to see, Zach Wilson go against Ohio State's defense. That'd be pretty exciting. But I would imagine it's either going to be Indiana, Maryland, or no one.
I'll throw out the Ohio Bobcats. Their game against Kent State also canceled this week because of COVID-19 concerns with Kent State. Maybe the Bobcats make that short 70-mile trip up 33 from Athens to Columbus. Again, I don't think that's going to happen, but, you know, if we're going to
logistically, that would make a ton of sense. I mean, you're talking about minimizing spread and all that. I mean, that game, I mean, you could play that game at 3:30 and OU could just leave the day of the game.
Let's talk a little bit about what might happen with the Big Ten championship game. We now have Barry Alvarez on the record and Ward Manuel on the record. Wisconsin and Michigan's athletic director saying the Big Ten needs to reconsider this 6-game minimum threshold. Both knowing they're saying this because they would like to see Ohio State play in the Big Ten championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a whole lot of foreshadowing from the power brokers that they're probably going to change this rule if Ohio State can't find an opponent this week. I think the Big Ten wants Ohio State to play 6 games. It makes it a little less messy. They're not going to just be showing outright favoritism if they have to change the rule. But number one, it's obvious Ohio State's the best team. Their chief competition is Indiana. They already beat them. I mean, they've done everything, you know, they've needed to do. I mean, one cancellation was because of them, but 2 others were because of their opponents. It would just not make a whole lot of sense to punish them. I know people talk about the rules. Like, this is not a real rule. It was established 2 months ago. I mean, even Michigan's athletic director has said, you know, he thinks that Ohio State probably deserves it. He said today they're one of the 4 best teams in the country. I think it was important for him to say those things publicly. I think it just makes it look better down the road if there is a change. But these next 24, 48 hours, I think, will be pretty fascinating just to see what the discussions are and what the outcome is.
You and I have both covered Ohio State for a long time, so it's no secret that the game always overshadows what happened the couple days beforehand, and that's going to happen this year with this Michigan State win over for Ohio State. We're going to lose the fact that the way that offensive line came together, Wyatt Davis, the only offensive lineman starting in his regular position, everybody else was in a new position, a new starter, yet that offensive line, outside of some poor snaps from Harry Miller in the first quarter that Justin Fields handled beautifully, that offensive line was really able to set the tone, and that's going to get lost because of the cancellation of the game.
Yeah, there were so many storylines, I think, in that Michigan State game. And the offensive line, I mean, you had Larry Johnson coaching and Ryan Day gone and just the whole COVID thing. But the offensive line, man, it was pretty amazing. I really thought they would struggle. I think that position, more than any other position, is the biggest gap between starters and the second team. But I mean, they were out there and they were really, really good. I mean, Trey Sermon had a great game. Justin Fields had his best game rushing. I know some of that was because maybe the protection broke down at times and he scrambled. But I thought Max Ray really, really stuck out, a guy who essentially had never played before. And then he's just thrown to the wolves in a Big Ten game, really cold weather, which maybe that's why they played well, because offensive linemen love that weather. But it was a really, really encouraging sign, I think, for the future, for even this season, if they need some help going forward. Who knows when those guys will be back, the starters. And I think Greg Studrawa kind of deserves a game ball from that Michigan State game.
On the other side of the ball, without Tuff Borland, without Josh Proctor, we saw Ohio State play a little bit more 4-4 with 4 linebackers on the field because of Pete Werner's versatility. He can drop into coverage in the secondary. And with that 4-4 formation, St. John grad Dallas Gant saw quite a bit of playing time, ended up with 5 tackles, and he did enough that he caught Ryan Day's eye while Ryan Day was sitting at home in Central Ohio watching on the couch.
Yeah, it's always encouraging, I think, in the post-game press conference when the coach mentions you by name. That cannot be a bad thing, especially because he was saying it in a positive manner. I mean, I think Gant, when he's had time to play this year, he's done really well. I think Saturday was, probably his best game this season. I watched him a lot on the field. He just was kind of a ball hawking guy. He was always there, just really quality. And I think he's going to be a great guy on the defense in 2021 for Ohio State. You mentioned Pete Werner as well. I mean, that guy has just taken off this season. I mean, he seems like he's better and better each week, each game. He's one of the more unsung defenders, I think, in the Big Ten.
I want to thank Kyle Rowland from the Toledo Blade for joining us. Of course, you can follow Kyle on social media platforms, the Blade, the print, and the online editions. He will keep you up to date on the latest in an ever-evolving situation with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Kyle, thank you.
Always a pleasure.